Welcome to the Soberish Uprising. My name is Holly Kay, a former heavy drinker who started a Soberish Uprising of her own a little over a year and a half ago, and everything in her life has changed. On the Soberish Uprising, we tell stories of finding freedom from alcohol on our own terms, with no judgment, no regret, and just straight looking forward to making our life better with no booze. Today's is the final episode in a 4-part series I've done, the 4 myths that held me back from changing my relationship with alcohol. The myths, the stories I told myself, the beliefs I had that stopped me from making a change that in turn made everything in my life better. And the first 3 were I don't have time, now is not the right time, I don't have a problem, and like, who am I if I don't drink? But this is one that even if I would have resolved all the others, would have stopped me from moving forward. It's a big one. And that was that my sobriety had to look a certain way. When I wanted to reframe my relationship with alcohol, redefine, I didn't see anybody do it in a way that felt relatable to me. I saw either people drinking at the pace I was at, continuing, just making it part of my daily life. And then I saw like AA and rehab, right? None of those really felt right. I didn't see sobriety in a way that felt to me. And, my drinking was really ingrained in who I was. So to make a change to say, I'm not going to drink, I'm going to go where it's part of my life, it's part of my relationships, my habits. It's just a part of at that time of who I am, to not drinking at all, or to go to an AA meeting or to go to rehab just did not feel right to me. And again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with any of these options at all. But for me, it didn't feel like that was my solution. And that thought of it had to look a certain way held me back for so long, because I've said this once and I'll say it a million times. The thought of being totally sober for the rest of my life felt like going to the moon. It felt so out of my control that I couldn't even. I just could not even. So this is this myth of I had to do sober a certain way that really, really held me back. And here's what kind of helped me bust that myth, thoughts I've had, 3 areas that I think were really helpful when we start to redefine our relationship with alcohol. And the first is an all or nothing mentality just kills any type of forward progress. And we know this. If you're somebody who has tried to change any type of habit in your life or to do something differently, we can tend to go to all or nothing, right? We're like, I'm going to get up and I'm going to work out every single day for 30 minutes at 5 a.m. And you're like, not even a 5 a.m.er, right? So you do 1 or 2, and Wednesday morning's too tough. So you're like, forget it. I messed up that one. I'm not going to do anything. Or diet, right? How many times have we done really well eating and then we, quote, slip up and have something bad, quote, bad. And then we just we're like, screw it. I'm just going all in, right? This all or nothing mentality. And it happens all the time. And but this thought of all or nothing did not resonate, because how could I commit to something permanently for the rest of my life, like sobriety, if I didn't even know if I was going to like it, right? I didn't even know if this was something I would be interested in. I thought it was, but I wasn't totally sure. And also, people don't like to be told what to do. They don't like restriction and deprivation and that feeling. And so at that point, for me, it was just too much. And so I added a little bit of playfulness. And this is really helpful in this all or nothing, right? This sober-ish. I had these smaller goals. All right, it's going to be 70 days for sure, a hard reset. And then, okay, let's try a month. It wasn't an all or nothing. And these small steps, right? Not knowing if you can commit to something without trying it out, right? You don't, you test drive cars, you ever turn ballsy on clothes, people are waiting a long time to get married, right? How do we start to make these little steps and feel these wins of sobriety? And then we get to decide if this is a forever thing, right? And as I had this mentality of, okay, it's not all or nothing, it can be a little bit more flexible and a little more balanced, it helped me get more committed and more accountable, because I had those little moments, not this all or nothing, but this little piece of, okay, yeah, this felt really good, I want more of this. Or this felt really good, I want more of this. Or I had a couple drinks and that didn't feel good, so what did I learn, right? So having that flexibility and the commitment, right? It's not that if you're all or nothing, you're letting yourself off the hook, right? There's a little bit of an accountability, but to go in all or nothing for me, I just knew it wasn't going to work. It hadn't worked for multiple things in my life. And so even today, I know how good I feel sober. I know what it's done. I know the harmful effects of it. I still like have a hard time committing to forever, right? Like that's still kind of a little hard for me, but I do know now what that looks like. And I know that it may not be an all or nothing. And that's what soberish is about, right? It's the balance of being really, really structured and intentional, but also flexible when you need to. So there's not that feeling of deprivation. So number one about this, my alcohol or my sobriety had to look a certain way was this getting rid of the all or nothing mentality. Number two, a change to last has to feel empowered and not restricted. Again, humans don't like to be told what to do. Once it's like focusing, you can't have whatever, that's all you focus on, right? All you focus on. When I decided to shift from bummer, I don't get to have alcohol to, oh, cool, I don't have to drink alcohol, that changed everything because it was a powerful choice. And, my brother was the first person I saw do this. He got sober about little over 3 years ago, more than, probably 3.5 years ago now. And it was a freaking power move. I didn't see him. Yes, he had his struggles, but he wasn't sad. He didn't feel like he was missing out. He was like, oh my gosh, I get to show up better as a coach, as a friend, as a brother, as a son, as like, I am just a better human. And so that makes that choice a lot easier, right? A lot of what I had seen was people making that decision because they had to, or deprivation. And that to me felt sad. It was somber. It made sobriety something that felt like something was wrong with you. And that could not be farther from the truth. But when you look at it that way, why would I want to change? Why would I want to change? And, again, these were my visions, my myths, my beliefs. They were not the truths, right? That's a big part of all this. But was like, why would I choose that? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, yes, I knew like the hard feelings, the waking up hungover, the not keeping promises of myself, like that was hard too. But like, what do they say? Like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, that type of thing, right? Like that version of sobriety did not look like the fun, excitement, freedom that I wanted in my life. And so knowing that it's a choice of freedom and power and excitement and joy and not deprivation is huge. And this goes for other things. Like we don't need to punish ourselves. We don't viewing our decisions to do better for ourselves and coming from a place of power. That's like the best feeling in the world, right? And now I know when I don't have a drink, it's because like I just don't want one. Like it's not going to fuel me. I'm not going to feel great in the morning. I'm not going to be engaged in this conversation. Or I say, I am going to have this drink because it's a really good moment and I'm not doing it to mask a feeling. I'm not doing it, whatever the reason is. Like I'm having a great glass of wine and I'm going to be so happy with my action, right? So changing from a punishment to a joy, that was it. That was it. And I hadn't done that for so many years, because I only saw sobriety one way. That's the way I saw it. And again, this is my truth. I know I'm not alone. But to see that shift and then to live my life with that decision, that was everything. So two, and the sobriety has to look right, it doesn't have to. Like what you see on maybe TV or, feeling of I'm sober and the sadness, like it's not that. It's not that for me. It may be out there for some people, but I've seen so many people out there that it was an empowering choice and not one made out of fear or deprivation. The third piece, which is what this is all about, is like we create our future and we create our plans, right? My view on sobriety and freedom from alcohol will ruffle feathers. A lot of people will say that's not true. That's people can't moderate. Like this isn't okay. And that's fine. That's not what I believe. And I'm choosing to believe what works best for me. And again, it's not a comparison, but it's so important that we say, hey, what works for me? And when I was in this journey and I was talking to my mom about it, who has been a phenomenal supporter, very non-judgment, but always there to listen. She would say, sometimes she's like, well, it's a form of self-care. And I was like, absolutely. Like your sobriety is a self-care and we have to define what that self-care looks like. Right. And of course, you're like, duh, of course we have to define what works for us, but we get easily caught up in what society tells us, whether we're, relationship, how we handle relationships, jobs, parenting, non-parenting, we can really get caught up in what we should do, right? And so when I think back of creating this plan, and I think back to the very first day in September when I said, okay, I'm not drinking till Napa, which was around Thanksgiving. That was like a really solid choice for me that worked at that time. At that time, I couldn't have said, I'm going to be sober for the next year. That was still too much, right? But I think it's so important that we create that future, we create that plan, and then we honor that plan. And nobody, including myself, gets to tell you what your sober journey looks like. That is yours. And and if you don't know, get the support to figure out what that looks like and to create the plan. My version of sobriety and soberish will adapt. I have no doubt. So many of things in my life have adapted as I've grown, as I've gotten older, as priorities have shifted. But at the end of the day, when you're creating your future, when you're creating your plan, when you're creating your own sober uprising, which is very individual to you, does your booze intake serve the person you want to be? It's the only question. Does it? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're not sure. If you're not sure, just take that moment to say, okay, what could it look like? Let's have a little plan like I did for my 70 days, right? I didn't commit to the moon. I didn't say I was never going to drink again. I was like, hey, I deserve this. I deserve this 70 days. And I'm reading this book and it's called The Craving Mind, really about like mindset and meditation and so much of what we talk about in coaching. And it's a quote from Abe Lincoln. And he says, if it feels good, or if I do good, I feel good. If I do bad, I feel bad. That is my religion. And I love that thought of, maybe religion doesn't relate to you because you're very strong in your faith and that's great. But like, that is my like game plan, right? And feeling good, do good. You feel bad, stop doing that bad, right? But that's how I'm going to continue this journey of creating my own path. Nobody gets to tell you your sobriety has to look a certain way. And they will try, and that is fine. And that is their truth. But for me, owning it, standing true in it has changed everything. If I tried to live somebody else's version of sobriety, I would not be here today talking about this message. So thank you. Again, that's that final myth that my sobriety had to look a certain way. And honestly, why I started Sobrish Uprising, to spread stories of people doing it differently, to encourage others to take that small little step towards redefining their relationship with alcohol, towards stepping away from the amount they're drinking to live their life. So thank you for tuning in. As always, please leave a review. Please share with a friend. And if you're somebody who is either curious about just starting the Soberish journey, please let me know. I am taking an email list, going to be starting a program this summer to support those on the Soberish journey. And if you are on your own Soberish journey and want to share your story, please let me know. We have to start spreading this message more. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, it's not about saying no to booze. It's about saying yes to you.